Like many other little children, I was incredibly scared of needles growing up. In fact, when I had to go to the hospital to visit a family member as they had a surgery, I almost passed out just entering the hospital because I couldn't stand the idea of seeing a needle, or even worse in there. That was the time my parents ruled out the hopes and chances of me becoming a doctor. Needless to say, needles were not my friend. That changed in 2022. From December 2021 to December of 2022, I had more than 20 needles inserted in me, 5 of which were in my neck. From an unexpectedly complicated surgery to even more scares, my experiences with needles have surprisingly shaped me into who I am today, pushing me to achieve my dreams and become more mentally tough. Let me tell you how. It all started in December of 2021 one night when I was looking at myself in the mirror, admiring myself of course, and I saw something the size of a golf ball in my neck, if not even bigger. I was like, what is this? I blinked once, I blinked twice, it was still there. Now, this was around the time of finals, and I did feel myself going a little delirious, so I had to ask myself, is that really there, or is it just me? And it was there. Unsurprisingly, when I showed my parents, they were terrified. We immediately went to the doctor the next day, and after a CT scan, we're told it is a branchial cleft cyst. Now, while harmless, it did mean that I needed to get a surgery to remove it. On that same day, I had not 1, not 2, but 5 needles stuck in my neck in order to make sure that the lump wasn't cancerous. When each needle was stuck in me, I felt myself going, this is it, it's over. And tears did well up in my eyes, but I didn't cry. As I looked over to my right though, I saw my mom crying for me instead. Fast forward to winter break, and I end up with a 13-day fever. Now, this was around the time of COVID, so I thought, could it just be COVID, or was it something else? But after 4 COVID tests and a blood test, we found out that my cyst was actually infected. What this meant was that my surgery had to be rescheduled and took 4 hours instead of the original 1 hour. Now, at that time when I was getting the surgery, they also couldn't find my vein and took 5 needles all over my arm to try to find that vein. And I didn't cry again. My mom did for me, so I got some major deja vu there. Since the surgery was so complicated, I ended up with a dislocated collarbone and more nerve damage than usual. And it was a struggle, to say the least. As someone who relieves my stress by working out, how was I supposed to do that when my dislocated collarbone meant that I wouldn't be able to put a barbell in my back? And the nerve damage meant constant tingling in my arm that meant I wasn't even able to do the simplest of exercises. I found myself feeling extremely helpless and complaining at times because I wasn't even able to handwrite my essays and found myself being impacted academically and socially. It was a good 3 to 4 months before the pain got better, impacting every aspect of my academic and social life. Throughout these 3 to 4 months, I realized I needed to stop complaining about my condition and focus on improving myself and getting this better instead. I continued to push past the pain and was successfully able to handwrite essays again. I even worked with my physical therapist to adapt my arm workouts so that I would be able to build my strength and get back to 100%. And I even started to practice gratitude and focus on cultivating a positive mindset, because one small change can make a big difference. When looking to build mental toughness, it's important to be grateful and practice mindfulness. Because when we surround ourselves with gratitude, we are more able to have a resilient and optimistic outlook on our lives. We all face moments when things may go as unplanned, or we face obstacles and challenges that we feel that we are not able to overcome. It's human tendency to feel upset, angry, overwhelmed, and frustrated in these situations. But what I learned after constantly complaining and complaining is that this not only fails to solve them, but it has a negative impact on the well-being of us and on those around us. When we reframe our thoughts and choose to focus on the positive, it can improve our mood and our overall well-being, allowing us to have a more positive outlook on life. I really tried to implement this philosophy and idea into my everyday life because I knew that complaining would do no good. These setbacks, in my case, a surgery mishap, are small obstacles in a long journey. For me, these obstacles didn't stop. In June of 2022, I found myself with a second surgery scare as I had a 5-day fever and another lump that reappeared in my neck. We were convinced that the cyst had returned, and my parents and I grappled with the idea of having a second surgery even though I hadn't recovered from the first. Those were two of the mentally hardest days for us as we continued to wait for the test results to come back. Thankfully, everything was okay, and even though there was so much at stake for me at that time, I realized the importance of surrounding myself with supportive people. When building mental toughness, it's really important that you have a strong support system for you, because it can allow you to be more grateful and stay motivated even in the hardest of times. I don't know if I would have been able to do it if my friends weren't there for me, if my parents weren't there for me, because it really allowed me to stay confident and look at the bright side even when things got really, really difficult. Now, this also taught me a second lesson, to start living in the present. I was so caught up in the fact that I would have a second surgery even if I didn't know that I completely forgot about any other aspect of my life. I canceled plans, and those 48 hours where we were waiting for the test results were consumed with sorrow. In today's fast-paced world, it is all too easy to get caught up in the hustle and bustle and lose sight of the present. We may be constantly checking our phones, worrying about the next item on our to-do list, or just worrying about the future in general. But what I realized is I did not need to spend those 2 days worrying when I didn't even know what was going to happen. When we are constantly worried about the future, we are more likely to feel stressed and anxious. But when we focus on living on the present, we can let go of those worries and find a sense of peace and relaxation. If there's anything I've learned from living in the moment and living in the present, it's that everything will work out, and it's just really important to be mentally tough in the hardest of times. As I entered senior year, I only hoped that this wouldn't impact me anymore or get in the way of college apps. While my condition was much better, I did have another scare in November of 2022 and ended up in the emergency room with the pain it causes me to this day. But my experiences in the past allowed me to push through this pain, and I ended up achieving all the goals I wanted to, as well as finishing my college applications. But what I did realize from this experience was to not let setbacks and failures define me. Everyone experiences setbacks and failures at some point, but it's important to view these as opportunities for learning and growth, not as defining moments. While not all of you may go through a difficult surgery like I did, or go through something worse, I know you all have dreams that you want to accomplish, but also obstacles in the way of them, whether that be a difficult exam, a confrontational conversation, or a precarious situation. And it's really easy to let these obstacles get in the way. But those who are mentally tough, don't let that happen. And those who are mentally tough, make sure that you stay tough in the hardest of times, because it's only by getting over those small obstacles that you are able to achieve your fullest potential. And that's really what I learned after each and every single one of these barriers. It was really hard sometimes to stay motivated, and it's definitely hard when you have so much going on and are juggling so much to be motivated because you feel like you can't put yourself in all these places. But at the end of the day, just remember that everything will work out and everything will be okay. Our mental toughness is tested all the time. And we're confronted with so many situations where even if we may not know what to do, we just go for it, we take the leap, and we put ourselves in situations where we are constantly challenged. Mental toughness is a quality that is needed in order to succeed and thrive. And the importance of mental toughness cannot be overstated. It is a quality that's needed to succeed in any pursuit, whether that's in school, in our academic life, or in sports. But what's important to remember is that there are a lot of people by your side too. So remember that you do have that support system and you are able to pursue your passions even in the hardest of times. With that said, let's make a commitment to cultivating mental toughness in us and in those around us. Thank you.